It is Tuesday, March 19th, 2024. This is another edition of Football Today. You know those two dudes from the Talking Giants world. Bobby Skinner, Justin Penik. I am Chris Rose. Producer Mikey is along for the ride as well. Speaking of along for the ride, how's your little short track NASCAR ride over the weekend, Penik?
Oh, it was great. His historic race. Took a little 9-hour drive down to Bristol, Tennessee. Went up and down, and ready to talk some football, short track. A lot of. It was an action-packed race, and certainly the NFL didn't disappoint this weekend with an action-packed weekend as well. Like a lot of trades, like one draft involved trade, and then two huge trades, player trades as well.
Let me ask you a quick question about NASCAR, because Bobby, you're an auto sports dude, aren't you, as well?
Yeah, I'm a bigger fan than Justin is. Check out Racing Radio.
I disagree.
Okay, so when there is a yellow flag for caution, are you looking for pass interference penalty as well at the track?
No PTSD, huh?
Ooh, I got you. No, we Rubbin's racing. We bang and bang, and we don't have referees crying at every little bit of contact. This isn't F1. This is racing.
All right, let's get to one of those trades that Justin was talking about, and it involves a Justin, as in Justin Fields dealt from the Bears to the Steelers for a 6th-round pick. It could turn into a 4 if he plays at least 51% of the snaps next season. Some cannot believe that is all the Chicago Bears got. Penik, are you one of those people?
No, because I really do think you have to make a decision on the 5th-year option. There's only 1 year left, and I think the NFL is kind of bought into the fact that while Justin Fields is an extremely exciting player, a good football player at being quarterback is not something that Fields has been able to show. And it's also extremely true that it's a terrible situation that Chicago put him in, and finally, after him being 4 years in the NFL, 3 years in the NFL, finally, they have a great infrastructure around him, and they shipped him off and they shipped him out, and he's no longer going to be the quarterback for the Chicago Bears. So I also think the NFL is kind of realizing this in the draft too. After Panthers are gonna give up a 2nd-round pick for Sam Darnold after taking a lot of quarterbacks way earlier in years past in the draft, and maybe they should have. We actually have a question about that in a little bit too. I think the NFL is starting to realize maybe these quarterbacks that aren't as good, maybe we shouldn't overpay. Maybe we shouldn't give up all these draft picks for her. Maybe we shouldn't take the E.J. Manuels of the world. How about that throwback? Even we have a Kenny Pickett thing earlier. Maybe we shouldn't take these guys so early. So, no, I'm not – I can't believe that's all Chicago got. No, I don't think the NFL is going to overpay anymore, especially if you're not a free agent and there was not like a bidding war around Justin Fields.
Well, I also – truly believe, this is one of the few times I believe a GM when Ryan Poles said that they actually wanted to do right by Justin Fields and put him in a good and the best situation for him. So I do believe that, but the landing spots for him were dried up. The Eagles would have been a nice fit, but they went and traded for Pickett. The Ravens, Chargers, Saints, Seahawks, and Titans were like 5 teams where I think he could be like a good fit as a backup, but Pittsburgh gives him the best chance to play, even though he won't be the starter right away. But I also detest the idea that the Bears totally failed Justin Fields. It wasn't a great situation, but there's QBs that have been dealt much worse hands. And let's talk about Mac Jones. Think about how bad that situation was in New England. Mac Jones had a good rookie year. Mac Jones has actually shown more good football in the NFL than Justin Fields, despite the fact that I'd rather have Fields than Mac Jones. He was a failure in Chicago just as much as Chicago was a failure around him. He only had 1 game of over 300 passing yards, despite having a wide receiver 1 this last year with DJ Moore. And then even if you combine rushing yards, only 7 of the 40 games he played went over 300 combined yards. And there was multiple 100-yard games, rushing yard games too, and he still didn't hit over 300 yards in most of them.
No. I mean, you are traded for exactly whatever you're worth. That's it. We could sit here till we're blue in the face and say Tim Tebow is not a first-round pick. Well, Tim Tebow was a first-round pick because one team saw him as a first-round pick, the Denver Broncos, and they made him one. there wasn't one team that was willing to give up anything more than a sixth rounder that could turn into a fourth rounder for Justin Fields that we know of. I mean, Ian Rappaport, my buddy over at NFL Network, says there were at least a handful of other teams that were involved in this, and we're probably never going to know what sort of compensation was offered. But I mean, we all tried to connect some dots in the offseason, right? I mean, it was one of the top stories. Well, where is Justin Fields going back to his home in Atlanta? Like, they have a vacancy. Well, no, they would rather have paid $100 million guaranteed to guarantee themselves better quarterback play, which is exactly what they did. And then the rest of these guys were moving around for backup jobs. Sam Howell moved for a backup job. Oh, geez, I'm knocking my water over. I'm so excited about this. You know, Kenny Pickett moved for a backup job. Guys didn't move around for starters jobs. All the starters jobs that are available right now are going to be scooped up in the top 5 or 6 picks of the NFL draft. And that's what's going to happen.
And right now, he's not a good starting quarterback in the NFL. Now, I know we're going to talk about Russ versus Fields in a second, so I want to save some stuff for that. But he's just not a good starting quarterback in the NFL. Like, the only people who thought that was like the 20% of Bears fans who wanted to trade down. No one else. But I also think this was talked about so much, because Justin Fields has great talent, right? Like, it's not like him throwing the ball isn't an issue of his arm talent, right? He's accurate. He's got a big arm. He can make those throws. And then his rushing ability is obviously amazing. But also, I think on pre-draft takes on people where a lot of people really like Justin Fields. They thought he was like a close number 2 to Trevor Lawrence, despite the fact that he was the 4th guy picked in that draft. And so people have a hard time quitting him when the talent is still there with Justin Fields.
Now, I want to bring one thing up too. If Justin Fields has a year where maybe he plays, even if it's like 4 games, right? Imagine his stock is going to go up tremendously next offseason because the Steelers are going to decline his 5th-year option. He's not going to be he's not going to be on the books of Pittsburgh Steeler in 2025. Sam Darnold got a 1-year deal worth $10 million. Jacoby Brissett's still out here getting, fully guaranteed deals, $6 million. Like, I think, we talk about it all the time. Mitch Trubisky didn't play for a year, and then his stock was somehow higher than ever when he was a free agent that first time around. Then he got a deal to go play for the Steelers. I think there could be a good amount of stock, especially if Fields comes in, even if it's for a few games, and he has even 1 or 2 games where he lights the world up on fire and he has some fun plays and he has some fun, exciting moments. The Justin Fields stock could be higher than ever. Now, it doesn't mean that he would get a starting caliber contract at all, but Sam Darnold did just get a 1-year, $10 million deal, fully guaranteed, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, Sam Darnold, really? That much money, even if it's just for 1 year?" So stock could be high on Fields even after next year.
I don't use Sam Darnold as a comparison for him or the shining light. I would use Baker Mayfield because Baker Mayfield's a guy that got traded from Cleveland, went to Carolina, lost a job there, got cut, went to the Rams, played a couple of games, lit it up on Christmas, the whole thing. And he had to take a prove-it-to-me deal, and he proved it. So that should be the poster child for Justin Fields right now.
And even then, Baker played better ball his first, with his first team, the Cleveland Browns, than Justin Fields ever did.
And by the way, Cleveland isn't the easiest place to go to when you're the number one overall.
I know that rookie year was like that was that there was some good stuff that happened that rookie year. Then it fell apart with Freddie Kitchens, and then that first year with Stefanski. I know the Stefanski scheme is very helpful and all of that, but he was good that year, right? Led them, won a playoff game, was on the verge of beating the Chiefs in the playoffs, so Baker played really well that next year, despite the fact that we never thought of him as like the elite QB outside of the rookie hype after year 1. So, like, we talk about all these other situations. Other guys have had more success than just what Justin Fields has had, and in a lot of times in lesser situations.
And by the way, final point here before we move on. Can we look at this through the lens of Ryan Poles? Like, this might be, if he fails, it might be the only opportunity he gets to be the architect of an NFL team. I'm talking about the lead dog. Would you rather be grilled for getting a 6th-round pick for Justin Fields or be right about Caleb Williams? Like, isn't that the whole thing from Chicago State? Who gives a shit whether it was a 6, a 5, a 4? You could hit or you could whiff just as easily. Like, is 2 rounds really going to make a difference? Just because.
And there's still a chance it gets moved up to a 4th. Now, I will say with Ryan Poles, like, if I bet you there was a better offer on day one, like the day before free agency, right? Like, that's when I would have done it, because teams aren't going to sit around in bidding wars for a backup QB, right? They're just going to go sign other backup quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Like, think about how many teams got eliminated. Like, Joe Flacco to the Colts. You mentioned Sam Howell to the... Like, a lot of teams filled their backup QB need before the trigger was pulled on this trade. So I'm just speculating, but I bet you there was probably a better offer before the league year kicked in too.
It's possible. I can't tell you the number of Browns fans who are like, why didn't we just trade a 6 for Justin Fields instead of sign Jameis to an $8.9 million deal? I'm like, guys, is this where we are, really? Like, we're discussing the backup quarterback situation?
Well, you guys got 3 Pro Bowl QBs on your roster, so you're good.
That's true. That's true. We're in great shape. Don't get me started on what people think about the Tyler Huntley signing. Bears, last point here. Some past 6th rounders, just in case you're curious, over the last 25 years. We know about Tom Brady, Jason Kelsey, Antonio Brown, Adelius Thomas, Mike Anderson, former running back. Decent players you could get in the 6th round.
Don't forget about Gary Brightwell.
Oh, good one. No, I forgot about him. Steelers said despite the acquisition of one Justin Fields that this is Russell Wilson's job. Bobby, is it a mistake to not make this open competition?
No, because I think Justin Fields could actually win that open competition. The best thing for Justin Fields, if the Steelers are actually looking at this from a long-term play, which is what trading for Justin Fields should be, the best move is to bench him and let him reset. And let him, get back to the base. Like, you can learn a lot from sitting. I know people like to underrate that, but it's a whole different world in the NFL when you are focusing on getting better at playing quarterback or compared to facing, the Baltimore Ravens next week, right? Like, you're not really working on, you're just working on your game plan. So I think letting him sit and reset is a good move for him. And if they make the move to him eventually, then he's not going to be in line to, they won't be in a Tampa Bay Buccaneers situation where they have to pay Baker Mayfield 3 years, $100 million. They'll probably be able to keep him at a reasonable deal if he doesn't start for the full season. So if they're looking at this as a long-term play and want to keep Justin Fields around for a while without having to pay him big money, I think this is the best move, even though I probably would rather see Fields play than Russ Wilson.
I'm with Bobby. I didn't even think of it from that angle. Like, I was almost just going to think of it as, maybe the Steelers are just maybe being a little tongue in cheek, and maybe they're lying right now, because I really want to know, was Russ given a heads up? That's what I want to know. Was Russ given a heads up when he signed that this was going to happen? Because not only, like, okay, yeah, your brain goes to Chicago, your brain goes, oh, maybe they should have gotten more for Fields. When this news broke, and I'm sitting in, this was Friday, right? I was sitting at qualifying at Bristol Motor Speedway Saturday. Yeah, that's exactly what was happening around me. And then I see Justin Fields traded, and it's Saturday, and I'm like, my brain goes to Russell Wilson and thinking about did he sign up for this? So, yeah, I'm with Bobby. Where I am full on even when a guy gets drafted now, I almost like if he could even sit for, even if it's just for a couple games, half a season, I'm all for that. Where I used to be play the guys early. So, but that's a very good cost-effective analysis by Bobby, and now I'm fully on board with that.
So there's a few things here. Number one is that there's reports fluttering out there that the Steelers are already interested in an extension with Russell Wilson, which I can't believe. I just can't believe that. Right out of the gate, you want to get a guy in his mid-30s who's obviously declining and has not been great the last 3 years. And I think that's putting it kindly. The other thing is that Justin Fields wanted to be Russell Wilson. When he got drafted by the Bears, one of his first press conferences he said, I'm trying to model my game after Russ. So here's your opportunity, dude. Up close and personal. Now, when he sees some of the bullshit that comes with Russ, like Russ being Russ, that'll be interesting. He might be like, damn, why am I sitting behind this motherfucker?
Really? Russ did have some, he was really good for a long time in Seattle. So, and Russ is a very good football mind, despite the fact that he's not the player that he once was. My favorite Manning Cast interview ever was Russell Wilson. Like it was one of the first ones. But the thing is, Russ is not what he once was. Like I was with the Giants signed Broncos tight end, so I was watching Broncos film. And I'm like, man, this really was a struggle with Russell Wilson. Like, we're not seeing this. We're missing this throw down the field. The ball's fluttering a little bit. So I think Fields can eventually get in there and unseat Russell Wilson. But the Steelers shouldn't be in any rush to do that. And there's no expectations to be a contender this year.
Stop. Absolutely there are. Why else would you have signed Russell Wilson? You want to try and win this year.
I mean, like win championships.
Why not? I don't understand.
Because they have Russell Wilson and Justin Fields as their quarterbacks and two wide receivers on their roster.
And I feel like you don't trade away Deontay Johnson. Now I understand where both of you are coming from, and this is why the Pittsburgh Steelers they've been this in between team for so long. For so long, they don't really know where they're at. Well, we're not bad enough to really fucking suck, and then get the quarterback. But we're also not really good enough, and really it feels like it's far away. We're far away from being a team that could compete up there with the best teams in the AFC, a la the Ravens, the Bills, the Chiefs. They've been this in-between for so long where I feel like at least these moves in a vacuum with adding Fields and adding Wilson, and at least add some excitement to a QB room that even hasn't had any excitement from even Ben Roethlisberger's the tail end of his career, where I would kind of view Russell Wilson and maybe Justin Fields. Russell Wilson, let's say he's the starter. I kind of view Russell Wilson as an upgrade of Ben Roethlisberger over the last 2-3 years of his career, because he was at least Wilson has a little bit of a better arm
and mobility.
It adds and mobility. It adds some excitement to a QB room that is the most important position in sports. It adds some excitement to a QB room that just has not been there. And even though there's been no excitement in that room, they've been a team that's competed for a playoff spot every single year. They're this in-between team.
Yeah, well, they haven't had a quarterback plan in like a decade.
Right.
Remember when every year, the last like 6 or 7 years of Roethlisberger's career, he was like, yep, might call it quits. Like such an attention whore. He would do that every year. And the Steelers knew they couldn't draft a quarterback high because Big Ben's mental makeup wouldn't allow them to. There's no way.
Even Mason Rudolph bothered him.
That's exactly the point. And he was a third rounder, right? If they had done the Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers thing, forget about it. That would have been major headlines. And, Big Ben would have been, oh, they don't like me anymore. And it wouldn't have pushed him to another level like it did Rodgers, it felt like at times. He would have just gone the opposite way, hidden, ran, and curled up in a little ball. But they've never had a succession plan. So I don't know. It's very just raise your hand right now if you think that Justin Fields is better than Russell Wilson right now. Raise your hand.
It's so tough.
I do.
My hand is raised.
Bobby, come on.
I'm going to go against the grain. I think Russell Wilson is better, right?
But it's not.
You know what? I'm raising my hand.
Good.
Build around Justin Fields, run a bunch of zone reads, give him a bit simple. Like, be a good offensive coach and make him look better than what he is. So yes, I'm saying Justin Fields. Damn it.
But I'm also with you. But I'm also with you with the importance of kind of sitting him for the pseudo year.
Amazing.
So you have the cost. It's cost effective. So if he goes out there, If he goes out there, Chris, and he plays well, he's gonna get paid. He's gonna get paid.
Is it going to be by the Steelers?
But then there's just like a loss investment.
But the point is that are you trading for Justin Fields to be a backup, like the guy behind the glasses and break in case of an emergency this year? Or are you taking a flyer by saying we could get our next quarterback at a bargain basement price? Because if you're not, then what's the point of trading for him? You know what Russell Wilson
Mayfield
is.
Like year, he's going to get $30 million per year. That's not bargain.
But if he does, then why don't you make it? Why don't you make him your Baker Mayfield?
I I just think it would be good for Justin Fields long term to sit and not worry about the pressure of being the starter and get better as a quarterback. And the Steelers, the Steelers are not going to be a Super Bowl contender unless it becomes like a all-time great defensive run. Like, even if Justin Fields plays like better than he did in Chicago, that offense still isn't going to be a top 10 offense in the NFL.
They got better at linebacker. They added a viable starting corner in this league. I don't know. I just think that we're looking at it through Justin Fields' lens way too much. What about what this means for the Steelers? They're not in the business of helping Justin Fields' career. They're in the business of trying to find their next quarterback. They might, I don't think so, but they might have him right under their nose. And so what? They're going to let him play 3 games to up his value and go get a nice deal somewhere else? Like, that seems...
No, but I what I think it's about is...
You won't get a big deal from off of less than half of a season.
No, he won't.
Right, and I think that's the thing, where it's like, then if you keep him kind of under wraps this year, you decline the 5th-year option, he's a free agent next year, you bring him back... You can bring him back for whatever kind of, whether it's 2 years, and then 1 year's fake money.
$18 million with 10 guaranteed.
Yeah, and then you have a really team favorable contract, and then you can unleash the beast. And that's, I think, that's at least like Bobby. If Bobby and I are leading the Steelers, that's our vision for it.
Here's the elephant in the room, though. Justin Fields probably isn't going to do all that because he hasn't been a good quarterback. I would argue Chicago last year is probably a better situation than Pittsburgh this year.
Really?
Unless they make a huge move, for wide receiver, which I guess they could do in the draft. So maybe that can change. But like, at the end of the day, the Steelers are probably going to need a quarterback 1 year from today. We'll be doing football today, talking about what are the Steelers going to do at quarterback.
Mark the tape. Let's move on. Pittsburgh needed a backup after trading Kenny Pickett to Philadelphia. So if you're doing the math, out of the 6 first-round quarterbacks selected combined in 2021 and 22, 4 have been traded. Zach Wilson's on his way out of New York. Is that stat alarming, Penik, or is it just a bad 2-year run?
I kind of don't know. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say it's not alarming. I think it's just it's a bad 2-year run. Bad 2-year run of quarterbacks. Oh, man. Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, 2-3. And ironically enough, it was the Mr. Irrelevant. That's their franchise quarterback right now. No, but I mean, Wilson's just so much of it is, are you drafted to, a good context, good surrounding, good coaching, good infrastructure? Really, I really almost want a case study on like what happened with Trey Lance and why he didn't work and why Brock Purdy worked and all that stuff. But
I can tell you, Trey Lance was never that good of a prospect. He barely even threw the ball at North Dakota State. Missed his last year. He was just a big arm who could move, right? Like who could run. Like they drafted him because look big. Like his film wasn't amazing at North Dakota State, I believe it was. Like it wasn't amazing. Trevor Lawrence, we knew was going to be great. Justin Fields, we all know, had issues processing the field. Zach Wilson lived off of highlights. Mac Jones got to throw to Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith and that offense. And then the next year, we knew that class wasn't good. Kenny Pickett would have never been a first rounder in any other draft class. There was some. Malik Willis was fun, but we found out that he's just not an NFL quarterback.
And that was the first year that the NFL really responded to, okay, we're just not going to take quarterbacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And 2021 was the ultimate, like, we just want to find the next, we can make Mahomes and Josh Allen, right? Those guys were having, were at the top of their game. And it's like, well, look at the arm angles that Zach Wilson throws off platform. Look, he can do stuff that Mahomes did. And Trey Lance was like, oh, is the film very good? No, but he can run. He's tough. He has a big arm, so we can turn to Josh Allen. And in reality, it's a lot harder to do that than people realize. So taking quarterbacks is hard, and teams get desperate and make them.
This
Talking
isn't
about them
anything
is
new,
hard too.
by the way, guys. This isn't anything new. Like, if you go back, go pick a year in a draft, it's 50%. Usually, let's say there's 4 quarterbacks taken in the first round. There's one who turns out to be a stud. There's one who turns out to be decent. And then there's like 2 who you're like, I can't believe those guys played in the NFL. Like, really, it's a joke. Just go back to 2020's first round. That could end up being one of the greatest ever, right? Between Burrow, Tua, Herbert, and Jordan Love now hopefully continuing to ascend there. That's 4 franchises that could get their dudes locked up for a decade. That's really, really freaking impressive. And that just happened the year before 2021.
Yeah.
So I just think it's kind of it sucks. It really does suck. I guess it's, we had that year in 2011 where everybody got pushed up, the Jake Locker year, right? Remember that?
I even thought
that year was nuts. I remember watching that draft. I was a big Ryan Mallett believer. I was big into just arm talent at that point of my life.
2 quarterbacks I thought of when I was just thinking of this question: EJ Manuel and Christian Ponder.
Mm-hmm.
Those are 2 quarterbacks of my decent childhood, if that lets you know how young I am. Yeah. I love DJ Manuel. He was my guy.
I was in Minnesota when the Vikings drafted Christian Ponder. It was very funny.
Yeah, I worked with his wife on season 2 of BattleBots. Samantha
Whoa.
Ponder. There you go.
What season are you guys on now?
Well, we didn't shoot it last year. Thanks for taking a shot at my heart.
I
got
want
crushed by the
to
writer's
come out
strike.
to a BattleBots. I watched BattleBots as a kid. I was watching it on whatever channel it was, late at night on Saturdays, watching BattleBots.
Yeah, it was on Comedy Central, and then we brought it back off the shelf in 2015. Hey, listen, if we can talk a little neck car, we can talk some robot fighting here.
This is true. What did you just call it?
Neck car.
Called it neck car?
Yeah. No, you never heard that?
The Net Zero number 0 of Ward Burton, Jack Sprague drove that thing. Mike Skinner got a race in it.
So we're all in agreement that it's not that big a deal, right? What happened in 2021, 22.
No.
It's been happening for years. You know what I did for the research? I went back and I wanted to go look at some quarterback drafts. In 1989, Troy Aikman was the only quarterback taken in the first round. The next year, Jeff George, who went first overall, was the only quarterback taken in the first round. In 91, I think Todd Marinovich was the only one taken. And I believe in 92, there wasn't one taken in the first. There was a 4-year span where virtually no quarterbacks were taken in the first round. I was like, damn, that's some crazy stuff. Can't find that these days. I'm not going to do that year after year after year. All right. So if Bears fans are going to poop near Ryan Poles' crib based on the compensation he got for Justin Fields, they better clean up the yard based on what happened with the Keenan Allen trade. They dealt a 4th rounder to the LA Chargers to go get a guy who's put up some amazing numbers throughout his career. Is this a great move by Chicago, Bobby? Is it a head scratcher for the Chargers, or is it both?
It's a great move by the Chicago Bears. Now, he's 32 years old and has missed 11 games the last 2 seasons, but that 4th round pick is totally worth the swing. Even with the games he missed last year, he had 108 yards and 108 catches and 1,200 yards, missing 4 games for them last year. The Chargers had to fix their cap situation, and they may be taking a wide receiver at 5. It just made sense that it was time to move on for the Chargers instead of reinvesting into it. But this is hey, put pieces around Caleb Williams, right? So now instead of adding whatever, backup linebacker in the 4th round, you just added Keenan Allen for a year or 2 with Caleb Williams. They have the 9th pick, and I can't wait to see what they do with that pick. On defense, they're not the top defense, but they have talent back there. They played better in the second half of the season. I think, this is my prediction, the Chicago Bears are going to make the playoffs in 2024.
I love it. I love that. I'm not so sure it's going to happen, but I
truly believe in Caleb Williams. I think, obviously, he's won 1 in this draft. And even, people like to, because he's been the 1-1 for so long, people look at he understands the game better than Drake May or J.J. McCarthy or he's just understanding of schematics and offensive football. He understands it better. All the scrambling shit was out of necessity. Almost every time it was out of necessity. And he was able to make magic out of it. I think Caleb Williams is truly going to elevate them. You got DJ Moore and Keenan Allen on opposite sides. I'd like to see them maybe try and add a slot, a chain moving slot wide receiver instead of trying to make Tyler Scott that. I think they're going to be like a wild card team this year.
Quick exercise. Besides Waddle and Hill, who has a better 1-2 tandem punch in the NFL?
Chris?
Philadelphia.
A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, that's fair. Yes.
The
All right,
Bengals.
so
Jamar Chase and
Bengals.
T. Higgins.
if he stays.
Now, I don't know if you could say better necessarily, but they do a nice job up there in Seattle.
Yeah, I would
Right.
take Chicago over that. I like DJ Moore a little more than DK. But
But can I give you something? I want to hear. It's a good exercise, by the way. Part of the Keenan Allen thing, I heard a couple of things out of Chargers camp, and you always hear stuff when guys go. Number one is they want guys that can win right away. I think Keenan Allen is like a great receiver against zone at this point of his career. Like he's going to know exactly, and that's a big thing. That's a big, big deal, right? Like particularly for a young guy who's going to be seeing all sorts of different defenses at this level that he probably hasn't seen in college. And so you need a guy who's reliable, that he's going to be in the right spot. And that's exactly Keenan Allen. I think 5 of the last 7 years has had a 100-catch, 1,000-yard season. That's really productive for a guy who's never been known as a speed dude. I mean, it's the reason that he ended up in the 3rd round when he had such great numbers and great hands and great route running ability, all that sort of stuff. And the other thing is that you just hear some things about him not wanting to play at times with the Chargers.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yep. That's what you hear. So there you go.
I'm still very excited, though.
I am too.
Extremely excited.
I think it's a great move for the Chargers. Bobby, your point about them getting a 4th-round linebacker that's going to help out on special teams and maybe slide into a starting role in 2 years is the point here. You know what you're getting with Keenan Allen at this point of his career. That's good. It's been in best Bears combo since Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey over a decade ago.
Yeah.
Which was pretty good.
You know? I will say this about the Chargers. If you're Justin Herbert, are you a little pissed based on what's happened this offseason? They're going to have to replace more than half of their total yards when you're talking about Eckler, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen.
They have 4 receivers on the team right now.
Mike Williams made sense. He hasn't been able to rely on Mike Williams anyways. I mean, they're at pick 5. Like, there's a good chance they take, a Neighbors or a Dunze.
Yeah, they're going
Or trade.
So they're gonna, and their running game is gonna be good. Like, it's a guarantee that you have Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman. That run game will be good, no matter if your son is playing running back Chris Rose.
Well, he's lost a lot of weight, so he's going to have to start pounding some protein shakes.
Let's get him on that Frank Gore workout.
Yeah. You mean the one where you can play football without a helmet because your head's so big? It was seriously. There were times where you'd see his head, you were like, "Oh my god, that thing is massive, awesome." All right, let's head back out to L.A., where Aaron Donald officially called it a career after a decade of dominance. How shocked were you, Penik?
I was pretty shocked because dude just feels like he could play for 5 more years and still be really freaking good and still be the best player at his position, right? He's 32 years old, and you take a look at his Pro Football Reference page, and it's like, he played 11 games last year, probably with some injuries, 5 sacks, 11 QB hits, and then this year 8 sacks, 23 QB hits. And you look at that, it's like, for an interior defensive lineman, especially for a year where he struggled with injuries 2 years ago, you're like, that's still pretty damn good. It's still pretty damn good. But then it's like Aaron Donald's not just pretty damn good. He's the best at what he does. I want to emphasize, like, for the interior, like the interior defensive line, where the double team rates, if you're good and if you're that good, are so much higher. And for years, I've been kind of like, an analytics guy since I've kind of gotten more into football stuff. I just like the number side of it. And, Seth Walder puts out the double team rate graph and the win rate graph. And Aaron Donald is just in the top right. And it's Aaron Donald, and then you have to go down tiers, and then there's just everyone else, and maybe there's some outliers of the Jeffrey Simmons, Dexter Lawrences of the world for the last couple of years. So he is better, he's faster, He's stronger. It looks like for years he's been playing a different game from everybody else, and the production that he just put up was crazy. I'm happy that he made this decision on his own timing, but I'm gonna miss watching him play. He is the best football player, and I'm even putting this up with Tom Brady. The best and most dominant football player that I have ever watched with my own eyes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. I was going to ask if he was the best defensive player that you had ever seen.
The most dominant. Because, again, like how difficult it is. A quarterback, if you're good, it's so easy. It is easy for you to win the game on your own, right? You know, if you put up 300, 400 yards and you have amazing throws, right? And I don't want to I'm not downplaying Tom Brady. But to be that dominant and control a game like he does from that interior spot, he made Byron Young and Colby Turner look good this year. I'm really interested to see what those players are like next year now that Aaron Donald is going to be gone. So, yeah, man, I'm sticking with that statement.
Yeah, no one ever commanded double teams the way that Aaron Donald. Like, there's guys who get double teamed just by playing on the interior. Aaron Donald, like, changed it. And if there's one player who's helped the players around him, you know, on the defensive line, it is Aaron Donald. Letting Leonard Floyd start to have big numbers. Like Justin mentioned, those young guys. No one did that better than Aaron Donald, to where the fact that they would line up him and the defensive end both outside the tackle to try and get Aaron Donald some one-on-ones. I think one of his greatest accomplishments is he made Brandon Staley look like a guru. But in seriousness, he averaged, 0.77 sacks per game, 0.94 QB hits, 3.5 pressures, 1.5 tackles for a loss per game. Right, to a full season, that's 13 sacks, 16 QB hits, 59 pressures. That's top 5 every year since he's been in the NFL, including edge players. And like his average for the defensive tackle spot is higher. There's only been 3 seasons for defensive tackles since he went in the league that have had a higher production rate than just his average. Right, J.J. Watt had 119 total sacks, pressures, hits in 2014, 92 in 2015. And then, actually, there's only 2, and then Fletcher Cox had 95 in 2018. Donald had 106 that year, by the way. So his average is better than like a Hall of Fame defensive tackle's career best seasons. Yeah, he's a one-of-one type guy. I wasn't surprised he retired, but I was sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. Sad for us. Happy for him, man. Imagine just taking your head and just banging it into a wall, 70 times every Sunday for a decade. Because that dude did not miss games. He didn't miss a game because of injury until his penultimate season. At that position? Like, are you kidding me? That's some defensive Joe Thomas type shit that we're talking about. And I remember the first time I saw him, I have to be honest with you, I wasn't watching a whole lot of Pitt Panther football during the 2013 season. So when we got to the Combine in 2014, and there are certain guys, Bobby, you know this from watching it extensively, there are certain guys that blow up the Combine. And so what you'll hear, whether it was Mike Mayock at the time or Daniel Jeremiah now, is that if you do something that's totally unexpected athletically out there, it makes you go back and look at the tape for one of 2 reasons. Either why didn't this guy produce at that level, or why didn't we pay close enough attention before we got here? And that's what happened with everybody with Aaron Donald. They knew he was a good football player, and then they screwed up by still not drafting him until the middle of the first round.
He produced at an elite level, too, in college football. He went and dominated the Senior Bowl, and it was like, well, he's 6 foot, right, sub 300 pounds, right? And he's opened the door for other, like Kalijah Kancey last year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, Kalijah Kancey's production at the same college, about the same size, was elite. But you still look at it compared to Aaron Donald's numbers, and it's like there's still a gap, right? Even though Kalijah Kancey had the best pass rush numbers in the nation for edge and defensive tackles besides Will Anderson last year. So it's opened the door for some of the – obviously, John Randall was a smaller guy, too, for the Vikings. But it's – you look at it. Here's why I'm sad he retired, though. Not because, I'm going to miss watching on Sundays. I will. He finished his 40th on the sack list all time.
Okay.
I just wish it was. I wish he would end up higher, right? Like when people go back
He had
and look at it.
111 sacks from the interior.
I know that, but I wanted like he could have been so much. If he played 2 more seasons, right, put together 20 more sacks, that would put him in the top 20.
Okay.
Yeah, but
And then John, like, and he was only 26 away from John Randall, right? And then other defensive tackles, there's none that I'm seeing, unless Jack Youngblood a defensive tackle.
No, he was a very, very small end.
Right. So I would have liked him to see him challenge John Randall's number, and John Randall played for 14 seasons. Aaron Donald ends up for 10, but obviously it doesn't take away. I just wanted to see him go after those numbers. But obviously he's first ballot Hall of Famer, 8-time first team All-Pro in 10 seasons, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah, he's
Bobby,
nuts. I wish he wasn't cutting his career short.
Bobby, Penik said he was the best football player he's seen with his own eyes. Where do you have him ranked, whether it's defensively or total?
I mean, I'll just do defensively. Yeah, he's the best. He's the best player I've seen. I'm trying to think of who we would even challenge that. So I started watching football like around 2001, 2002.
Mm-hmm. Ray Lewis, Ed Reed.
Yeah, and I love those casts. Those are 2 of my favorite players of all time you just named. But Aaron Donald, to me, is to me clearly better than those guys.
Yeah, the only 2 guys I could say, and I think I lived through the entire Lawrence Taylor career. Right. I mean, we're talking about.
Yeah, I think Lawrence Taylor's better when I go back and watch him, but I didn't watch him live.
I can tell you this, man. It was scary watching him. Like, you worried about the health of quarterbacks. Like, when he broke Joe Theismann's leg, I thought he killed him, actually. I was watching it as a 15-year-old kid. I thought he killed him. I really did. And he was so crazy on top of everything else that every component about him made him, like, it made it scary to play football because you might have to end up blocking a guy like it. Eric Dickerson,
he's a lunatic. He's the greatest of all time when you go back and watch what he was. He was just able to do essentially whatever he wanted. Last defensive player to win MVP was Lawrence Taylor, correct?
Yes, in 1986. There's only been 2 of them. He and Alan Page did it in 1971. So Eric Dickerson used to come on and be a guest host on Best Damn a lot. And Eric was great talking about Eric. He wasn't very good on TV, but he was great talking about Eric. And he told a story about his rookie year in 84. The Rams asked him to go chop block Lawrence Taylor. So Taylor's coming around the edge, and he goes right at his knees. And Taylor grabs him by the face mask, and he says, "You do that again, I am going to fucking rip your head off and kill you." Now, when people say that, you're like, oh, okay, whatever. But when Lawrence Taylor says it to you, God knows what he was on, you think it's going to happen. So Edie runs back to the sidelines, and he's got this high-pitched voice. He goes up to his coaches. He goes, "Do not make me do that again. That man is crazy. He wants to kill me, and he really might kill me. Do not ask me to do that again."
Sir Lawrence of the Meadowlands. He's one of one. He's still around.
There was a switch, man.
Doesn't watch football at all. He's just living his life.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Let's move on to a guy who maybe we thought could have been a Lawrence Taylor type, albeit a different position. Chase Young signed with the Saints, 1 year, $13 million. It's his 3rd team now in less than a year. What's your confidence level, Bobby, that he regains the form that made him Defensive Rookie of the Year?
He's got bad medicals. I actually thought his rookie year was a little overrated, too. It was just kind of like he did all right for the draft hype.
Yeah.
It is crazy thinking about, like, he just needs, like, I don't think he takes football that seriously. And it shows in his game. With that size, that athleticism, he has no bag as a pass rusher. He doesn't use power even though he can. He just likes to work around the corner. He'll look to time up snaps. Remember we talked about it, like, he wasn't playing discipline within the defense. Jonathan Allen was calling, indirectly calling him out on that after games this year. He should figure out, like, it truly feels like Jadeveon Clowney all over again, where he's going to go around on 1-year deals. He's going to have good years, have some bad years. He's going to have some bad medicals. and it's just never truly going to live up to the draft hype.
Let me hop in here, Penik, for a second. I really knew that his career had hit the skids when he got traded out to San Francisco and still couldn't be anything more than just a dude. You had Nick Bosa on the other side. I watched him get sucked in against the Packers on like 3 of the first 5 plays. And he just misread the play, didn't have any juice on it.
He's a stat hunter.
Yeah. And
his stats aren't that good either.
I think the only reason he got paid as much as he did on this 1-year deal is because they are a desperate team. I mean,
I think this is a good deal, right? Like Chase Young is still a good football player in all of this, but he's just got no bag as a pass rusher. Like it's so like I remember even beginning of his career, like in matches with the Giants. I'm like, why is this guy trying to just work around the corner? Like run, you're playing like the weakest offensive tackle in the NFL right now, Nate Solder, shouldn't be an NFL player right now. You just watched the week before guys run through his ass, and you're just sitting there trying to work the corner all game. Like he doesn't have any developed hand moves. He needs to like learn how to play defensive end as if he like what would you do, Chase Young, if you weren't this great athlete? Like what would you do? Because that's the way he needs to operate.
Well, he needs to listen to Cam Jordan. That's what he needs to do.
Yeah. It's been really
Which
good.
Would be, that could help, but it's very frustrating to watch him be only above average because of athleticism.
He actually was better with Washington in less games.
Because he was stat hunting. He was just looking for timing up the snap, getting around the corner. Like he was stat hunting. He was the ultimate like have 1 or 2 good plays a game guy.
Could I get the timeline on his ACL and then his recovery? He tore it in 2021, right? Mm-hmm. Or did he tear it in 2022?
No, he tore it in 21.
In 21, he didn't come back.
He didn't come back. That was the whole thing with him. We thought, oh, well, he might be close the first couple of weeks, and no, it kept getting pushed and pushed and pushed.
So 2023, ideally, I said this last show when I was talking about Mike Williams about coming off the ACL. So ideally 2023, since that was the second year coming off the ACL, he was able to rehab. Done rehab. You weren't rehabbing your knee going into the 2023 season. You were getting your body right and you were becoming a better football player. And this is ideally the top physical shape that you're going to be in your career, especially for him being 24. He was 24 last season. He's about to turn 25. Yeah. Like, I could look at it from the perspective of, he was still top end of the league in pressures. He was top 15 in pressures according to the PFF, but the splits of Washington to San Francisco is very, very concerning because even before Washington traded everything away, San Francisco has a much better front, especially with Nick Bosa on the other side of you, and you have an interior that's really good. San Fran is much better at generating pressure than Washington is. So yeah, I'm with you guys. If he tore his ACL last year and then this was the first year off the ACL, I'm like, give him a shot. Let's see where the body is. He's 25 years old. Let's rock and roll. But especially, Bobby, you're talking about this stuff schematically. I'm with you. I still think there is a player there, and I think Jadeveon Clowney is a very fair comparison.
And this is a good deal for the Saints too. Like I'm not saying I dislike this deal. I think he's going to be a productive player in the NFL for the next 5 to 7 years, or however long his body holds up. But he's never going to meet what we thought he could be.
Right, and for the expectation of, Chris, you literally started this saying, we thought that we could be getting a generational pass rusher here. That's not what we're going to be getting at all.
No, well, he was the next guy in line at Ohio State after the Bosa boys. And so people are like, well, they produce great pass rushers. This dude is a freak. What are you eating, Penik? Chef Boyardee?
Oh no, I'm eating strawberries. I'm taking advantage of the fact that we use speaker mode on Zoom, so you can't even see what I'm eating.
Look at
that. I just want to thank Caden Smith for burning Landon Collins in 2019, which the Giants fans, oh my God, we lost out on Chase Young. Fuck you. We got Andrew Thomas, my hero.
Hey now.
Very, very niche Giants fan conversation, but it decided that Giants-Washington game in 2019 decided the order of that 2020 NFL draft Washington picked second, took Chase Young. Giants picked third, took Andrew Thomas. Fourth.
Yeah, come on, man. Who did pick third and who was picked? Quick, Justin. Don't answer this, Rose. You're going to know it.
Third? Who picked third?
I'll give you one hint. He's a bust.
I don't know.
Jeff Okuda.
I love Jeff Okuda.
He's on his third team now. Okay, Vikings traded with Houston for a second first-round pick in the upcoming draft. Smells like a trade-up to go get the future quarterback. Is it a mistake, Bobby, if Minnesota doesn't move all the way up into the top 3?
They're going to.
I don't know if top 3 is possible. Like, let me ask you this, Rose. You're in NFL circles. Are the Patriots actually entertaining not picking a quarterback at third?
Can't believe that they would be with a new regime, a new head coach, the opportunity to go get a quarterback. Is it a new
regime, though? That's the thing with New England, is I'm seeing a little bit of Giants, like, is it really a new regime? Or is Gerard Mayo just happy Bill Belichick?
That is possible, but it also depends who's really pulling the trigger. Because for years, we knew who it was. Is it Elliott Wolf? And if so, is that really the guy you want quarterback hunting? And do they even know, like, who's making decisions? Or is it a group? That was the most concerning thing when you heard at Gerard Mayo's introductory news conference that it was going to be a group thing. Like, that's holy shit. You know how long it takes to order dinner when there's 6 of you in a room and you can't figure out a place. Well, let's go here. Let's do that. And then you're like, shit, if one person just took charge, we could have already had a seat at the table. So
Which means Robert Kraft is involved in this too, by the way, which I think his ego has gotten huge. I haven't watched that documentary, but supposedly it's a Kraft puff piece and basically giving him credit for everything.
It is, but by the way, it's worth watching. It is very, very well done because everybody talks in it.
Yeah, I'm going to catch it after the draft.
It's good.
Are they willing? But so let's just assume the Patriots aren't going to trade out of the third pick because that's the way it looks right now anyways. It's a very weird situation where I've done my work on J.J. McCarthy. Don't think he's worthy of a top 10 pick. I don't want the Giants to take him. So when the Vikings did this, I was happy because I'm like, it's saving me from having to live with J.J. McCarthy. But J.J. McCarthy will be good on the Vikings. So it's a very weird situation. It's like, do you trade all the way up for this guy, who I don't think is ever going to be an elite quarterback in the NFL, but I also do think he will be really good on the Vikings. He'll run that Kevin O'Connell offense well. Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the NFL. You got a good, number 2 in Jordan Addison, who's ascending. TJ Hawkinson. Like, I think their run game will be better this year. Like Alexander, I don't think it can be said how bad of a running back Alexander Matterson was. He actively lost games for the Vikings last year. And we're just talking about fumbles, let alone the bad vision and stuff he has. I think he'll be good on that team, but I just don't view J.J. McCarthy as a top 10 pick. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills, the conversations and the clips that are being shared of McCarthy of like, this is a reason why he's good. I'm like, this is late, and he passed up an open guy. What the fuck are we talking about with this shit? He doesn't have great arm talent. He's a good athlete. I am shocked at the way people are just buying into J.J. McCarthy.
Okay, but let me ask you this. Do you buy more into J.J. McCarthy as a possible franchise quarterback or Kevin O'Connell being able to resuscitate Sam Darnold's career?
J.J. McCarthy.
Okay.
Sam Darnold can have some flash moments, but he's never going to be a good quarterback in the NFL.
But why do you think J.J. McCarthy would be better than Sam Darnold, who we all thought could have easily been the first pick in 2018?
Well, I'm not saying that he's a guaranteed to have a better career than Sam Darnold, but hey, new is always a little better. The unknown is always is better than the known bad.
Yeah, so at this point, we've seen a lot of bad Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
We have.
So, and I think there's good things about it. I don't hate J.J. McCarthy. I do view him as like a late first round player, but hey, that's a lot different than trading up to the 4th or 5th pick to draft him.
Yeah.
Do you like conspiracy theories?
Sure. Why not? Well, it depends.
I know what you're talking about. The tweet by the Patriots staffer or whatever.
Yeah, Cameron Williams, Patriots college scouting director, has liked one singular tweet in 2024, and Thor Nystrom pointed this out. He's a big J.J. McCarthy guy.
He's a big Malik Willis guy too.
I'm telling you guys, Drake May is a Viking. They're sending a Godfather offer for 2 or 3. And then he liked that tweet. The college director of college scouting for the New England Patriots, which I believe it, by the way. Like I believe that the Vikings are, whether it's 3, 4, 5, like they've been desperate for the last couple years, and it always seems to be not the sexy quarterbacks in the draft. Like, didn't they love Will Levis? It's like, oh, we really want, there were rumors of them like loving Will Levis.
Well, they passed up on him.
Yeah, I mean, they could have had him. They loved him that much. They
could have had him, but I feel like it's never for like the sexy quarterback. And maybe they do. Maybe it is Drake May that we're debating and talking about JJ McCarthy, but maybe if they do give a Godfather offer for 3, something the Patriots can't refuse, and then boom, they're in a position we're debating JJ McCarthy, but then they take Drake May, and then then it really shakes everything up. So I do believe that they are desperate now, especially that they don't have Kirk. They have an analytics-led GM who I really do believe that it's we got to get quarterback or else nothing is figured out. I really do think that he believes that.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm rooting for it to happen. I love it when we have teams to trade up into the top 10 for quarterbacks, because it gives us amazing storylines to focus on, not only for a year or two, but really for almost the better part of a decade. Really can. Like, to me, I think one of the most amazing stories in the NFL that doesn't get talked about enough is the fact that San Francisco traded all the way up to 3 to go get Trey Lance, gave up 3 first-round picks, and it didn't fuck them over. Like, how many organizations could actually withstand that? It's incredible.
Basically just them.
Yeah, basically. Like, it's incredible. It would have sent so many organizations off the rails. So I'm rooting for it to happen, not only because I like Kevin O'Connell. I think he's an awesome dude. I think he's a really good offensive brain. I'm rooting for Kwesi. I want them to do well. Like, I feel good when the Vikings are good. They seem like they're such nice people up there. You guys
Bobby, you love them.
Oh, Bobby, you went to school up there.
They
no,
are
bullshit.
fake nice.
That's not nice.
They are nice to your face, and then they're shit talkers behind people's backs.
Minneapolis? Bobby.
It's fact.
Fact. What happened? Did you have a bad experience in your dorm hall freshman year? What happened?
Oh, no, it's a different. I am very much down with my Florida people. We're a little more nuts, but we're more direct with you. We don't do the fake smile on people's faces. It's Florida greater than Minnesota.
Wow.
Oh my God.
As was I didn't like Minnesota. It's too cold.
Fine, I'll buy the.
I have friends from there still, right?
I can't believe you said you're the first person I've ever heard that said somebody from Minneapolis is fake. God, Bobby.
Well,
there's a first time for everything, Chris.
I guess so.
You haven't been to Minnesota enough.
Yes, I have. I have been to Minneapolis a ton. All right, Jets added future Hall of Fame tackle Tyron Smith. 1-year deal, could be all the way up to $20 million if he's healthy and productive. Just like Penik said. You nailed it the other day. Nailed it. The question is, should Joe Douglas receive a big old pat on the back for his offseason, Penik?
Well, deserves a big old pat on the back for this deal. Did you see the structure? If he there's a first time play incentive and a second time play time incentive, and that's something that I don't fully get. But basically, it's broken down from 38% of the offensive snaps all the way up to 98% of the offensive snaps. And that's the big worry about Tyron Smith, is that if he doesn't play, if he gets hurt, and that's the big worry. Is that, well, there's not really guaranteed money if he doesn't play and if he misses time. So, without boring you, Albert Breer tweeted out the structure. Huh?
Too late.
Too late what?
You said without boring you.
Without boring you. All right, well, sorry about that. But Joe Douglas deserves a pat on the back with this structure because it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome the way that they structure this. I can't believe that, number one, Tyron Smith took this. Can't believe the Jets took it out, threw it out there, and then he took it. And then also, I can't understand for the life of me why Dallas couldn't give Tyron Smith something like this. But to stick it with the Jets, they got their left tackle. Bing, bang, boom, done. And if he plays, he's going to be really good for him.
Yeah, the incentives are like pretty nutty. Like if he gets 98% of the offensive snaps, 6.25 mil. If he gets 92%, it's $5 million. Like they're basically set themselves up for like a 1 year, $13 million deal unless you play. Like you can even just like if the season sucks or if they're I don't know, but this is a good deal. Jets. I still don't think they're going to make it to the promised land. I think they're a dysfunctional franchise, but they did identify their weakness and attacked it and made it better this offseason. Yeah, I still don't think they should be out of the I don't think should be off the table. They draft an offensive lineman with their first pick either.
I agree with you, right? Because they've got Tyron Smith on one side and now Morgan Moses, whom they just traded for from Baltimore, on the other side, who still is a viable piece over there. But you could have a shot at Fuaga from Oregon State.
Well, here's the issue, though, is that you got Moses and Tyron. Those are your starting tackles. You just signed John Simpson. You got John Simpson, big deal.
Right.
Elijah Vera Tucker. He's been injured, but he's one of the best players at the position. And then Joe Tippmann, who they drafted. So now that I'm talking about it, it's like, yeah, would that player be valuable? Because someone's going to get injured, but it's also hard to draft a backup, like a slated backup in the top 10.
And by the way, they don't have any receivers after Garrett Wilson. And one of those three monsters could be sitting there at 10.
Yeah. I think they're going to try and get Mike Williams, which I think it will be a mistake by them. But I think they're actually in a position just to go best player available with that pick, too.
That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Right? If there's... whoever. But just don't pick defensive end again. Don't do that, New York Jets.
I could see that.
By the way, Woody basically said, like, this is it. Like, y'all knuckleheads got to get your shit together, or we're finding.
Well, it should be. They got all this freaking talent.
Yeah, we're gonna have to find a new head coach and GM. So they got to figure out who at 10 can help them this year.
What position do you think makes them? I do agree with you. I think it should be a wide receiver makes the most sense for them because they're pretty set on defense. Like they can't add more up front.
Brock Bowers.
Even then, like, is that Aaron Rodgers has never used tight ends a lot.
No,
never used him, and he could go on the milk carton with Kyle Pitts on the other side.
Yeah, it sounds so good though, right? Like, hey, let's plug in the tight end here, but it's like. Right. How much value are they getting that from and I do think that should be viewed in a short-term lens, that pick. Obviously, hoping he becomes a great player long-term. But it needs to be someone who can contribute day one because you have a one-year window, basically.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to this. We got two more quick questions. We'll get out of here. Jimmy G to the Rams on a one-year deal. Is it over for James, or do you think that McVay can turn him around a little bit, Bobby Skinner, and he could be a viable starting quarterback again?
Never. He'll never be a viable starting quarterback. He barely was one when his time. I don't care about EPA per play. He was horrible with the 49ers. Anytime it asked him to do anything besides the basic easy throw, he folded. Jimmy Garoppolo stinks.
Oh. I agree. Next.
I can't just give it a one-liner in this household because I would end up divorced. That is my wife's favorite player ever.
Oh, yes.
And when she saw that he is moving to Los Angeles, which is where we live, like the world stopped. Like that was truly free agency frenzy. She's like, where's he going to live? I said, honey, they don't announce that. They just give us like how long the deal is, and that's it. It's not directions to his house. She's like, oh my God, I got to go work. She like immediately hopped on the elliptical just to go, do a little extra work. She's like, just in case I run into Jimmy G, because, Plouffe knows Matthew Stafford. It's a possibility that the whole quarterback room could be, so we could all get invited. I was like, oh my God, this is what am I
That's
here?
Where her brain went to.
Right. I mean, and by the way, I get it. Like, there's not much I can compete with when it comes to Jimmy G. Like, if he knocked on the door and was like, hey, Michelle, want to go to Vegas for the weekend? Like, I'd turn around and be like, God, where did my wife go? It'd be over. So I understand, guys. You guys aren't married yet. Bobby, I know. Congratulations. You're engaged. This will happen. It just does. So they get this stuff in their head. And by the way, if she runs into him, it's over for me. Almost 27 years of marriage would be down the drain. Thanks to Jimmy G.
Went pretty morbid.
Yeah.
Well, we could talk about, if you want to talk about morbid, you could talk about his touchdown interception ratio last year.
Oh boy.
Do you think that would turn Michelle Rose off or not?
Yeah, just like, hey, this guy had the best system ever, and they took a 7th-round pick, and we're like, he's extremely better than you.
All right, guys. Last thing quickly. Give me a free agent still on the board and the team perfect match for it. Bobby,
Justin,
you can go first.
Go first.
Oh, you want Justin to go first? Okay.
Or you
Justin,
can go first, Rose.
That doesn't matter.
Oh, I give the team 2. I love the safeties that are available. I'll pick 1, Justin Simmons.
You son of, I shouldn't have let you go first because that's who I had was Justin Simmons.
Kyle Duggar is also available too.
God, he's available.
Kyle Duggar's not a free agent. He's that's a bullshit tag. That
yeah.
Damn it.
I should have clarified. Yes, transition tagged.
Let's see. So why don't you go, Rose? Because now I got to scramble because
I've got one that's really not sexy at all, but I think it actually works. I've got Josh Reynolds, most recently the Lions going to the Houston Texans. I think they need a third receiver there. I know everybody wants to talk about his drop in the NFC Championship game. It was one of only 3 drops he had all year. I think he could be a dependable guy, give you 40 to 50 catches, half dozen touchdowns. Just another weapon there.
I'm getting sniped because when you sent this email yesterday, I'm like, ooh, can't wait to talk about Kevin Zeitler, and he ends up with the Detroit Lions.
Oh,
perfect
sure
fit.
did.
That city's gonna love him.
Yep.
And his family.
And his family. Are you a Zeitler family?
Oh yeah, because Kevin Zeitler came on our show. It was
from the Giants time. Okay.
Yeah,
we're gonna love him and his family.
We love Kevin Zeitler.
Okay, that was a good one. Do you not want to give one? You could end the show on a real downer here.
No, I'm trying to find one, and every article of best available free agents is pissing me off.
Say Connor Williams is a free agent. He's a good center.
Trying to think.
Okay,
here we go. How about Calais Campbell can still play a little ball, right?
Yes. Actually, he can.
You know, he was their best. He was the best guy on that front for Atlanta last year. So, Calais Campbell, where are you going to end up? Go chase a ring because he can certainly contribute to that.
He's an awesome dude. I don't know much about his family, unlike the Zeitler talking Giants relationship.
I remember when he was number 81 at Miami. I love Calais Campbell.
Yeah. Played in a Super Bowl his rookie year.
Exactly, with the Cardinals. Calais Campbell is one of my favorite underrated players of all time.
If I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong here, but I'll just throw it out there anyway. I thought he was part of their kickoff coverage team as a rookie. Could you imagine that dude running down on kickoff coverage? I think that's what happened. Yeah. All right, this was fun, guys. This was a lot of fun today. Penik, did you have fun? How many strawberries did you down during the whole thing?
Only about 4 or 5. Only about 4 or 5. I want to finish them after. Everybody enjoy. Like, comment, subscribe.
Okay, please do.
Tell a friend.
Right. We're going to do this later in the week as well, so make sure you keep tuning in twice a week for right now, and we'll take you all the way up to the draft, and then beyond that, and we're just here. We're just always here. So for our awesome producer Mikey, for the wonderful combination that is the Talking Giants world, Bobby Skinner and Justin Penik, I am Chris Rose. We will see you next time here on Football Today.